around 2 hours by divided into two sessions for 1 hour of each, and then we'll take a break at around 3 o'clock for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to the second sessions, and then we'll following with the Q&A part. And this seminar will finish around 4 o'clock. And today the topic is Turn Crisis into Opportunities by Lazada from Kun Noppadol Vashirakovit. But before we begin, I would like to give you guys a brief introductions about our special guest speaker today. By Kun Noppadol Vashirakovit got a Bachelor of Arts from Chulalongkorn Mahavidyalaya in Economics and also graduated from Shanghai Jiao Tong University, and now he is the Vice President of the Business Development of Lazada. So next, please join me to welcoming Kun Noppadol to speak us about the Turn Crisis into Opportunity. So please welcome to Kun Noppadol Vashirakovit ค่ะ
Should I share my screen? Or
Yes ค่ะ Yes.
Okay. Okay. You guys see my screen, right?
Yeah ค่ะ
Okay. So first of all, I'm very honored to be presenting today to share a little bit about the online landscapes and how Lazada helped play a role in this new economy. So the topic for today is Turn Crisis into Chance. So basically, before we go into the topics, I think we must understand first on what a crisis is. So a crisis is basically, by definition, a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. So I think currently, if we look at Thailand, I think it would fit into this definition of a crisis. But if we talk about, let's say, if it's an economic crisis or not, I would say we haven't reached that point yet. If we are in a recession, I think we recover quite a bit from 2020, but I think for 2021, it's a difficult year. And for a broad definition of a crisis, I think we're sort of in a crisis right now. And I think our next in the next chart, it will show how we, in terms of economy, and if we're in a healthy stage or not. So I think if you look at the chart on the left, you will see that our GDP is actually not growing much. Forecast of 2021 is going to be around 530 billion US dollars. So it's basically a little bit of a jump from 2018. So that's not a healthy sign. Like in 2020, there's quite a huge decline, about 10% in terms of GDP. So growth is reversing back to 2018, and I think based on the outlook of this new particular outbreak, I'm not sure if by the end of 2021 we will be reaching the forecast of about 525, 530 or not. As you can see on the right, our household debt to GDP is quite has a significant jump, and this is quite concerning. It's because household debt, like how important is it? It basically like tells you how much each household still has the capacity to spend, or how much are they in debt. So looking back 10 years ago, like household debt was at about 55%, and now we're reaching almost 80%. So basically, like savings are getting cut down, and also in terms of large spendings, I don't think the households are having too much spare money to spend on like larger items anymore. So definitely they have to be cutting in terms of like unnecessary items. So this is quite worrying in terms of looking at the economy. These two indicators is showing that our economy is slowing down quite a lot. Debt is rising. And if we look at the next chart, Consumer Confidence Index. So in terms of CCI, it explains how consumer feels about the futures. And right now, if we look at the chart on the left, they're not feeling too well. CCI was at 80 to a little bit of above 80 in the past 10 years. The lowest we ever hit was 70. And just recently, starting in 2020, CCI hit its like 10 years low at less than 50. And now we're at about 42, 43. So definitely it reflects from the previous slide that household debt is increasing sharply. And there's a correlation with CCI, definitely. So major spending is getting cut down. And when major spending from the consumers get cut down, GDP tend to decrease. So the forecasted of $520 billion, it might not reach that point because consumers are worrying about futures, and they tend to cut down their spending because they're not sure that in the futures they might not have the same income anymore. And if we look at in terms of productions, on the chart on the right, it actually shows like car production. It also shows about how consumers feel about like larger sum of spending, which is car and houses. So it shows that like in 2020, with the outbreak of COVID, like it's quite difficult for car manufacturers, all manufacturing plants to operate, and also the demand is shrinking down. So it's an indicator that consumers are holding their spendings, and also exports, or basically like the demands of our neighbors are also shrinking down. Back in the heydays, in like 7 to 8 years ago with the first car policy, the demand is definitely shrinking down. So if you ask me whether we're in a crisis or not, I would say, yeah, on a broad definition, we're definitely in a crisis. So in a crisis, I think a lot of the companies need to make some changes to be more tactical or be more practical towards reaching the consumers, understanding more. We're not just like we don't have spare cash to just throw around in marketing and advertising anymore. So let's learn a little bit more about how we cope during crisis time. So looking back in pre-2000s or post-2000, so basically in the year of 2000, it's probably the year that you guys were born. So economy is quite different. 20 years ago or 30 years ago, if you look at pre-2000 economies, we could see that there's a clear descriptions of products. So basically, the giants are selling more tangible products like CP, selling chickens, like Central making malls and concrete brick and mortar malls, and people just go in, pay, and then get their stuff. And like car manufacturers just manufactures cars. There's not a lot of technologies, or there's not a lot of like services involved. And these pre-2000 economies, it requires a lot of infrastructure costs, land costs, the manufacturing costs, the plants, and also it requires a lot of people, a lot of manpower. You can see that the major companies like CP or SCC, they all have like over 100,000, over 200,000 employees. So most of these world economy, these giants are labeled as producers. But post 2000 economies, we started to see a lot of more icons. We remember companies by their trademarks, their logos. So you could see that these companies is not tangible. You can't feel what Facebook is like. You can't touch Facebook. So it's just an icon in your screen. It's just what we call platform. So there's a constant involvement in features. For example, I mean, there's some evolve in the all economies. For example, like chicken is not just like entire chicken. You can see in 7-Eleven there are more forms of chickens or more forms to cook, but it's not an evolve in terms of feature wise or not in terms of untangible assets. So I think the cost of the new economy is more primarily on system development, and I think people would get more engaged with these platforms because it evolved, and they listen to consumers because you can't just like develop something without the needs of the consumers. So for example, Facebook, it has a lot of manpowers and a lot of developers. So whenever each features become popular, you can see that Facebook already have it. So this is the main difference, I think, between pre-2000 and post-2000 economies. And if we break down the post-2000 economies into different group of brands, different group of companies, you can see that on the top we have hardware and software ecosystem. So these apps like Facebook, Line, Lazada, Grab, it can't operate without the ecosystem. So some companies like Apple, they do both ecosystems. They also do both hardware, which is the iPhone. Google, it primarily focus on the ecosystem, but Google also started to do more hardware, like in their Google Home systems. So because data is very important, being an ecosystem company or basically the backbone of all other company is having a consumer or user data. It's very critical to them, and having the entire ecosystem allows them to access these data in each of the part of a consumer's life. So I think the most powerful players in the tech world is probably the ecosystems. And next, if we look at social platform, about 7 to 8 years ago, people would just feel that it's an entertainment platform, getting us connected to each other, similar to like MSN in the past and way back. But the importance of social platform is that they have a lot of user base and they have a lot of communications data, or they have a lot of how these users are like. So it's a very important platform for brands, for advertisers to reach into more consumers. For Line, they have, I think, probably 47 or 48 million people, Thai people, on the platform. And next is the e-commerce or the O2O platform. These are a more relatively newer platforms. So O2O has been in Thailand for about 5 to 6 years. So it basically transformed what offline business into online and more like regulated one. People can know like where the food is and where the transaction is. If it goes wrong, people can refund their transactions. So basically, like, delivery is not new, but delivery on the palm of your hand is something new and very useful, especially in this COVID time. And at the same time, e-commerce itself, retail space is not new, but having everything compiled and having extra access to stores in smaller part of the countries, or having access to over like millions SKUs on the palm of your hand, I think it's quite new to the Thai users. But with the COVID situation, it accelerated these adoption rate quite a lot. So if we look at old versus new in terms of advertising, or in terms of how brand reaches its consumer, what's the difference? I mean, you guys in your teenage years, you're probably in the new economy already, like getting your ads, seeing like new stuff. from social media and Facebook. But in the past, advertising need to guesstimate because behind the TV, they don't really know who's watching the TV. It's more like a guesstimate that it's probably a household having like 20 years old to 45 years old, but nobody can really tell. And everybody is basically aiming for the prime time, the after news advertising slot. So people have to pay like 2 million, 3 million for 30-second slots. And they don't even know if they have reached the right consumer or not. For example, I'm not sure if you're aware of the Bennett soap commercial. Bennett soap they basically blast to every channel available, both TV and radios, and hoping that some of the consumer is probably there, and after they hear a while about Bennett soap and its efficacies, they'll probably buy it. And if they hit like a 1 or 2% conversion rate, I think it's probably enough for them because they have a margin that is big enough. They sold a bar of soap for about 60 baht, if I remember correctly. And so if your product has a lot of margin, you could probably do mass communication or mass advertising, and you can still win. But in the time of crisis, I think having a more targeted directions of who your consumer are and how do we get to those consumers, it's very critical. And I think it's more cost effective when we compare to the old economy or TV advertising. So let me introduce you to screen time. Some of you probably know about it. And Thai people were number one in terms of screen time. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing, but probably a very good thing for advertisers because they have more advertising space. So on average, Thai people spend 5 hours on the screen, and compared to the world, which is about 3 hours. So there's an extra 2 hours that Thai people spend on the screen. You guys can also check this on your phone. And I think screen time become more of a priority in terms of health and wellness. A lot of the platform, they can let you choose to how much you want to spend per day. And social medias play quite a big role on this. About 91% of smartphone users use social medias. So I think in terms of data and knowing your customers or know where to penetrate to your customers, it's very critical because you have 5 hours to get to your customers. But if your ads or your products are not relevant to the one that you're conveying a message to, then it might be a waste of your advertising spend. And e-commerce right now, it happens all across platform. It's not just Lazada or our competitors like Facebook, Line are also our competitors because a lot of the commerce are happening on social platform. So if we look at the e-commerce versus the omni-channels, e-commerce growth trend is actually quite rapid when COVID kicks in. You can see that Thailand versus China, there's still quite a big gap, but I think China, they have a lot of incentivize people to use like online services, and Chinese people in general are quite an early adopters if there's incentive involved. So there's a lot of catch up, but we've come a long way from just 3 years ago. Our penetration, like e-commerce penetration doubles, quadruples within 4 years. And I think starting from COVID period last year, a lot of the brands who have never been interested in e-commerce became very serious, and they are equipping their employees to have e-commerce knowledge because of the rising growth of penetrations, and also the offline channels are being closed down. So it kind of forced the brands to adopt e-commerce. But at the same time, if you take a look at the retail space, they other other brands, they became more acquainted to the word omnichannels. Omnichannels is where you penetrate into every journey of your customers, in discovery stage, purchase, and after sales, and everything is linked together. It's not just creating an app and then, hey, say we got online business, but it's basically your entire ecosystem, the retail space, or your employees must be aware of the activities that is happening around these channels. So for example, if you go to central department stores and you have like a promotion on the central app, and you go into the stores and the staff there has no clue about it, and hey, saying to you that, hey, this promotion, I don't know about it, it can't be used, then it's not an omnichannel. But if you go into the stores, then said you're interested in products, and the staff is saying that, hey, for those who are interested in products and come from like in all our channels, we have a special promotions for you. And I think these kind of like coverage in experience and knowledge is very critical to current retail space, because with e-commerce becoming very competitive in pricing, I think the wins or the goals of retail space or retail companies, they must make sure that they have the real experience, real consumer data, and real people servicing these users. So they must fight back by having an omnichannel experience that is more complete. But I would say it's not like a snap or an like you think about it and the next day your like employees can react immediately. It's a step by step, because they have a lot of employees to cover and train. Yeah. So, but I think it's very interesting, and a lot of retail space are getting there and developing their omni channels. So if we look at e-commerce, so what brings people to shop on e-commerce? I think the number one factor is price. Most of the people who started e-commerce would say that, hey, it's cheaper buying online. Even they might hear from their friends, families, or they might discover it by themselves. They're gonna buy a new fridge and they search on Google, and they saw that, hey, the price is actually cheaper than when I went to the mall by 10, 15%. So that's also one of the factors. And I think from our research, it's a very important factor. And second is the assortment. We have a lot of assortment at the palm of your hand. So you don't have to travel to one place for, let's say you're assemble a bicycle. This place near your house has a tire, but you must buy like the wheels, and that place don't have the wheel that you want. So you must travel to Rangsit and buy another wheels. And there's cost and there's also time involved. So e-commerce kind of save your time and cost by browsing all the assortment at the same place. And it links with the convenience. So you don't have to travel. So let's say that particular bike store is not in Bangkok. It's in, let's say, Chiang Mai. And you probably don't want to travel that far for bicycle wheels. So ordering online or ordering from e-commerce platform, it's convenient and it answers the needs of the customers. And number four is, once we draw customers in, we want to retain them. And I think engagement is very important to make customers feel that we're not there just to sell, but it's also an enjoyable place to just visit and update the trending products. So why pricing matters? I think one of the reasons why is that the cost of opening a store is a lot lower than a brick and mortar stores if we compare to opening a store in e-commerce. Lower fixed costs, you don't have to rent a place, lease a place, or decorate your stores. And you don't have to pay like large amount of GP, like 30-40% or rental fees in that case. So brands could make a much deeper discount online. And I think this way, like Lazada is providing a lot of subsidies and incentives during campaigns. So there are a lot more collaboration involved because there are a lot of margins that brands or sellers that could be saved. So that's how we come up with the lower pricing. And I think pricing matters in terms of it's not just lower pricing if it's undiscoverable. Sometimes I think when you go to a supermarket, like you're unaware of certain promotion, you're unaware of certain like price, because in the supermarket, like there might be thousands of deals that are waiting for you, but you're not aware of it because it's not displayed in front of your face, and it's quite difficult to navigate. Maybe you experience a lot of times when you ask the cashier and they don't even know about half of the promotion there, and they say, oh no, it's not eligible, there's no such promotions. I've faced it thousands of times. And so I think display algorithm is quite important, because having good price and promotions and having the best way to display it, it's the advantage of e-commerce. And I think third is the campaigns. If we're talking about setting the consumer mindset that, hey, Lazada sells certain stuff cheaper or have a lowest price point in the consumer mind, we must keep it continuous. So that's why you can see a lot of campaigns, double-digit campaigns, 6677, continuing in our lineup, because we want to keep that low price perception in consumer mind. So assortment. I think assortment, sometimes when we have too many assortment, but it's not findable, it's very difficult to find certain assortment, it's pretty much useless. So I think investing in data and knowing how to use these data based on consumer purchase or browsing behavior, we want to display the right assortment to the right people. So I think data is very important. And with search, like about 60% of the conversion or the purchase came from search. So I think like having the right algorithm or the right logic to display certain products, even by number of reviews, even by how thorough the details is, or how good the picture looks, it's all an algorithm in our search and display. And third is the quality control. As a platform, there's like new assortment addition every day, every hour. So we must keep track of how healthy our platform is. So we have QC teams, both in terms of AI and both in terms of human, to QC these assortment and make sure that inappropriate items or illegal items are not displayed on our platform. And if we look at the convenience, so I think being an e-commerce platform, if we want to tackle all sorts of consumers, we must up our game and make our shopping experience as instant as possible. So if you ask your mom and dad why they prefer shopping at the retail stores, they'll probably answer it because I get to touch it. I get to really know what I'm buying, and I actually receive the product right away, so I'm not being cheated. That's a lot of perception we have, like bad perception we might have in e-commerce if we look at back like 5-6 years ago. That's when the logistics development come into play. Lazada invests a lot in logistic network to build an experience to like next to instant. If you look back 3 years ago, you probably have to wait 4 to 5 days in order to receive your products. But I think now a maximum of 3 days would consider slow already. Most of the official stores are delivering next day or next 2 days. So we want to match our experience with the retail stores. And if you don't like your products, it's very easy to return. So there's no risk involved. And if you don't feel like paying first, you can choose cash on delivery to make you feel more worry-free. So overall, we're trying to match up with the offline shopping experience because we learned about it through consumer research that consumers are not willing to try e-commerce because these are one of the factors. And if we talk about engagement, I think to retain customers, not just the platform, but the brand itself, sellers itself, need to learn about engagement with your customers. I think it's not something new. I think if we look back 10, 15, or 20 years ago, we see in a game show on television that there's lucky draw. You could be one of the winners to earn or to get like gold necklace. So people love to win. So we know about that. And so in order to secure our buyer base and help grow the number of sellers, we try to keep people engaged with coupons, with vouchers, and also some very extreme voucher. We keep it limited to make you feel fun about shopping. So you might like brag with your friend that, hey, you got the 777 voucher and you buy it like almost 20% cheaper than your friend who bought the same product. I think that's the thrill and that's the fun of shopping on e-commerce. And it's easy. You don't have to wait in line for like 2 hours to get it in an actual store. You can just be on your bed, get in time at midnight or 10 a.m. and everybody has an equal chance of winning. And that's one of the aspects. And there are also other mechanics that keep people pumped up about shopping at e-commerce. So there's flash sales. You could be one of the few people who buy at an extremely low price, or like I've already said, limited vouchers. And with live stream, this is also one of the pain points that we have tackled. Sometimes people want to see the products, and I think having a video, and you can see at multiple angles, can make people feel less worried and sometimes more engaged, because during these live stream, they might have some small rewards to help people become engaged with the sellers or with the brands. So I think engagement is very important, that not just the platform itself, but the brands or the sellers are adopting more even in their own channels or in a third-party channel like Lazada. So if we look at the customer journey or the touch point, so how do we convert customers, or how do they become interested in shopping online? So first, I think awareness is very important. With urban consumers or urban users, I think our awareness is quite prominent, but there are still a lot of the, as you can see in the beginning, penetration of e-commerce is only 8%. So there are a lot of people who still not aware of Lazada, So I think having the right media source to reach people is quite important. So let's say if we want to reach consumers in inner Bangkok, I think offline media might not be extremely important. So YouTube or Facebook might be more relevant and cheaper. But if we want to reach to consumers in rural area, they might not be as proficient in social media. So offline media might be more important. So that's how we got people to be aware of the Lazada platform first. And to consider the brands, I think we should speak to where they feel the pain. Like a lot of the Thai consumers, when they want to adopt new online products, services, they like to ask, like, is it free shipping? I'm not sure who started this free shipping trend, but we know that it's one of the consideration point. So I think for new users, it's instant free shippings and sometimes multiple free shippings. So to get people to consider, because if it's not free shipping, they feel that, oh, hey, it's expensive. Even though sometimes when you buy stuff on social commerce like Facebook, you pay for shippings, but sometimes now it's become a norm that like online services they offer free shipping. So whatever get consumers to become consider about our platform. So we would it's from studying like those consumers and see what's important to them. And I think through the middle part of where people would be close to purchase our products, I think values and reliability plays an important role. And like I said, engagement or gamifications, they must feel that they get the best deals after comparing through several platforms or websites. So if we offer the best in some of the aspects or all of the aspects, it would increase our chances for consumers to make purchase. And after that, if they feel that they're engaged with the platforms and we have good content and also sales mechanics that they feel that it's easy to comprehend to, it will come to a point that we can retain them. And after we have retained our customers, they would start to be our advertisers because word of mouth is never dead. And if our platform is good enough, people would recommend to their friends. If let's say, hey, I'm new to e-commerce, where should I start looking or buying? These retained users or these loyal users would definitely recommend the brands. So that's a basic in terms of customer journey and how we reach to consumers. So I think the key point is that understanding customers adapt and evolve our features and technology based on priorities are the keys to building not just e-commerce platform, or I think building O2O platform like Grab or Lineman are based on the same concepts, because we can't answer every need because there are probably millions of needs from consumers. But if we see the needs as big enough or we identify it as priorities, it's more efficient in terms of cost and in terms of time that it takes to develop or launch the product or features to the consumers. So I think understanding consumers is very, very critical and important for a platform like us to develop further and to know our priorities and where do we need to build next to be a platform of choice. So some key takeaways from today's sessions. Understanding, adapt, and engage with customers are the key aspects that I think a lot of companies are trying to do, especially traditional companies. And I think to survive this particular crisis, it's very important that we must touch along these key points. So we can't just understand and then don't adapt our strategies, and we can't just engage with customers based on our gut feeling and not actually looking at data. So I think these three key components should work together seamlessly in order to gain your customers' trust and finally like earn their conversions or earn their purchase. And second point, I think as I have shown you that with COVID, penetration doubles from last year's and quadruple from 4 years ago. I think a change of behavior, it takes time, but sometimes with external factors like COVID, it actually accelerates these adoptions very quickly because people have no choice. They can't leave their home. And a platform like us or a platform like Grab, it kind of benefit. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it accelerates adoption rate of customers because some customers may fear to use it at first, but sometimes when people have no choice, they have to adopt these new technologies. But adopting is one thing, but I think the responsibility of the platform is to make sure how these adoptions or the customer journey flow fluidly and they finally come back to use your service again. It will roll back. It will go back to how you understand your consumer behavior. And I think third point is very important. Like a lot of the brands or a lot of the sellers, they got impacted a lot financially. And they have to scale down their operations and they have to cut back a lot of spendings. As I've shown you, like the debt is growing. So online space allows smaller business to not having to use a lot of capitals, but having an equal chance, or not exactly equal, but a more fair chance to fight with the larger companies or larger brands. So I think that's how people started to cope and adapt to the new crisis or new normal situations. And I think an online platform like Lazada, we're here to help smaller business owners to have that equal or fair chance to fight with the larger companies. So I think that's a wrap for today's sessions. I hope there's some knowledge that would be useful for you guys. This is just an introduction to how online business works and how more traditional companies started to adapt to online world. So I think after this session, there's an Q&A afterward. So, yep, that's it for my sharing for today. Okay.
So we will have like the time to ask the questions. So if you would like to ask or have any questions, you can turn on your microphone or press your hand raise button on your Microsoft Teams. ค่ะ
คุณนพครับ before we start a Q&A section, okay, I have two things that I would like you to share. The first one is kind of your experience, okay? Because I know like my student, okay, they love to work with a big firm, okay? Because I experience you join many big firms. Can you share the experience, okay? How you can start, okay, for the big firm? And second one, right? Many of my students they're looking at the career, okay? One of company that kind of Lazada also, okay? Okay, kind of to thing I would like you to share to my students, ครับผม
Okay, so I think going back to experience of before I joined Lazada, I was working as a consultant, marketing consultant, both in Thailand and in China. And I think my experience in China, it kind of when I came back to Thailand, I wanted to join tech because I felt that tech would change the way people live their life, and just like how it changes a lot in China. So I would just consider the firm that I work for as tech because obviously there are a lot of bigger firms like CP, as I mentioned, or Central, which has a lot more manpowers and capitals. So I'll just focus on tech. I think if you guys are interested in tech, what I look for when I interview candidate is that I look for enthusiasm and how they learn about the company or the industries. Because I actually experience a lot of candidates who come in and then just say, I want to work for tech because I felt that it's the futures of the economy. I mean, they're right. But apart from that, I don't see much of the enthusiasm of why exactly, apart from it's the futures. Because the futures, I have to be frank that there's no place for everyone because tech firms are not as big as other companies. We only operate on very few thousand people, or a lot of the company operate on a few hundreds or like 40 or 50 people. So we don't have the capacity to hire like 100 to 200,000 people. But we are looking for candidates who show strong passion or actually do their homework in how the company works, or let's say how the customer journey are. Actually understanding both in terms of user experience or talk to a few people on how they operate as a brand on an online platform or their pain points of let's say some sellers who are primarily big on offline and how they want to adapt to go online. So I would love to see that kind of insights that you have asked around, talk to people, do your homework, studying about how the company actually operate besides from just wanted to work for the futures, because I think that's not enough. Because working in tech, it's long hours, like because our platform never stops. It's not the same as other companies, and when it never stops, there are a lot of issues or ad hoc stuff coming up, sometimes at midnight or at 2 a.m. So if you don't have passion to run the company or help the company grow, I think you're gonna have quite a tough time working in this kind of hours. And like, for example, on 11/11, like most people would sleep at like 3 or 4 a.m. So I think passion is very important, and doing your homework about how the industry operate or what's there in the future is quite important to join tech or Lazada in general. So I think that answers some of your question นะครับอาจารย์
ครับ Nat ดีครับ
Okay, so for this seminar today, we can see that Thailand is currently in the crisis due to the bad economic situation that Thailand is currently in, and in terms of the decline in GDP, growth rate, increase of the household debt, in decreasing in the consumer spending, and moreover, we have learned about the change happened after we move into the new economy era in terms of the rise of social platform and e-commerce platform, and we are also seeing what e-commerce had brought to the customer in terms of the pricing, assortment, convenience, and engagement. And we also need to understand the customer in order to know how to adapt and know what to do next. And so before we go to the Q&A part, I would like to promote our seminar in marketing for the next time. So for the next seminar in marketing for next time is the after midterm, we will have the director from the 9M court to be our special guest speaker to speak about the digital marketing. So if anyone interested or you would like to join, you can join with us in this seminar in marketing on 11th of August. So next, if you have any questions or you would like to know anything, you can press your microphone.
Question and answer ครับแนทครับแนทครับแนทครับแนท answer question and answer
So I want to know how did Lazada use omni-channel strategy to deliver seamless experience to your online shopper, both online and offline, and we understand that most of Lazada platform are online.
Okay. So I think for Lazada, we're trying to, since we're an online company, we're trying to penetrate into offline too. So I think we're working with more malls and events. So pre-COVID time, we work with a lot of the market, for example, the LOL market. So we want to give them the same experience that, hey, you can browse stuff on Lazada, get best deals, and you can see the actual items in the market. But your transaction, if you shop through Lazada, it's gonna be cheaper and easier. If you want to carry your stuff back from the market, feel free to. But if you want it to be cheap afterward, let's say you live far, you can also do that too. So we have that kind of initiative to merge between offline and online experience. And at the same time, our competitors who are more traditional offline retail experience, they also building it the other way around to make online merge with offline, both in terms of browsing experience or in terms of getting the best deals and promotions to make it more seamless. So I think if we're looking at Lazada perspective, it would be quite different versus if we're looking at a more traditional retail industry like Central.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone have question, please? Sorry, please.
According to Lazada is the most popular online shopping application. So how do you maintain a good customer relationship, because you also have like a Shopee, Amazon?
Okay, so I think it roll back to the points I mentioned before. So it goes back to price, assortment, convenience, and engagement. So these 4 factors are what brings people in, but at the same time, it also retains customers in our platform. So if, let's say, we have good price back in 2019, but 2021, our price is horrible. So of course, people won't stay. And let's say if we're talking about convenience, right now we have a lot of logistics that we build it by ourselves and also utilize our partner. Let's say if we cut down our partners by 4 partners are gone, and our logistics, let's say we can deliver from 2 days, and then it goes down to 7 days. So these things, it needs to be maintained. And also in terms of engagement, we spend a lot of time and energies in trying to make our campaigns more fun and more just like I mentioned, like gamification is quite important. Everybody needs to feel the win and the success that when they came into these special campaigns. So I think these four aspects are important and must be maintained throughout the journey or throughout the lifetime that customers are with us นะครับ
Thank you ค่ะ
ครับ
I have a question ครับ
ครับ
So for small business owner who sell product with Lazada, how Lazada help the owner to pass this COVID-19 situation ครับ
Okay. So we have a few initiatives. My team in particular is taking care of smaller sellers. So we have the seller package. So basically, when they came in, they don't have to pay any fees for the first 30 days. And also, we give them a lot of the visibility tools. So when they come in, they can use these tools. It's free of charge. And people will get to see more of their offering or more of their products. Like people, by people, I mean like customers. And we have special like agents to help cover new sellers who come in and they don't know what to sell, how to sell. So we have people taking care of them, giving them guidance through the phone, through the chats, and to make them feel at ease or easier, like to start their business online. Because I think a lot of the people who have no prior experience selling online, when they come into the platform, they might feel confused and lost. And we're trying to smoothen out those experiences as much as possible. ครับ
Thank you ครับ
I have a question ครับ
ครับ
because right now in right now situation we are living in the different generation, right? And it's also struggling with my auntie, and she get afraid of using the order online in platform, especially the Lazada. She claimed that she's struggling with the user interface and how the Lazada deal with these situations, because how to gain more target and market also to let the people, especially the generation Y, to become more the technology savvy and get used to it with the platform. Do the Lazada have to deal with it, and any plan to deal with it, like change the interface to be more like friendlier to this for the user?
Okay. So I think if we're talking about user interface, sometimes it varied from one customer group to another. So for example, for youngsters like you probably feel that Lazada user interface is not that difficult. So for example, if we decided to change and accommodate those who maybe like Gen X or people who are like 50 or 60 years old, and change it completely to make it extremely easy, and then we might impact another customer group, which is youngsters like you who are quite big in our platform. So I think when changing user interface, just like I have mentioned, we must do things by priorities. So we can't do things that would serve the needs of everyone, but we can do things to serve the needs who are the majority, who are the bigger customers of our platform. And we, in terms of like accommodating, let's say for your aunties, we have other ways to communicate to them and like other guides to help their journey a lot easier. Because I think like changing UI or user interface like from one way to the other completely, it's kind of risky of losing the existing customers also. So yep, I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
ครับ
I have questions. What is the biggest challenge of Lazada during COVID-19 pandemic?
Okay. So I think challenge come into two parts. So there are buyers and there are also sellers. So if we're talking about buyers, I must say that our competitor is also doing quite well during COVID, as well as us. We have grown quite a lot, but with COVID, it also brings a lot of new, like completely new buyers, who the ones who never experienced e-commerce before. So strategy sometimes must change a bit to accommodate these buyers. You can see that during the past 2 years, a lot of the platform are strategizing their key message on very low price item like 9 baht, 7 baht, or whatever. Because these new buyers, they want to experience e-commerce, but they don't want to take too much risk. So we're trying to make it risk-free as possible, selling very, very low price items, very low price assortment, and make it free shippings to make it to smoothen their journeys. So that's in terms of buyers. I'm just giving you one example. And in terms of sellers, there are also a lot of sellers who are very inexperienced with online selling. So we have been ramping up our agents or our staff to accommodate the needs, or accommodate, like, pumped up in terms of education to these sellers. We also have revising our what we call Lazada University to make it more simple and more understanding for people who are not very tech savvy. So basically, COVID have grown our buyers and sellers, but it also come with a challenge, because these people are, if it wasn't COVID, they might not join the online platforms. So there's some learning curve that that they must face, and we're trying to make sure that they face it with ease.ครับ
Thank you for your answers.
ครับ
I have a question. In recent years, we can see the fierce competition between Shopee and Lazada. So I want to know, what do you think Lazada should do to overcome this kind of situation?
Okay. So I think in tech company, no matter if e-commerce or like O2O companies, there would always be two giants who compete with each other. But I think competing with just pricing, like with subsidies, everybody lose. But competing with the overall experience, as I have mentioned, there are 4 aspects, like finding your assortment or having more engaged, being more engaged with your customers are also very important. So pricing, I would say it is probably the most important, but if everybody focus purely on pricing, getting the cheaper without having sustainable business model, then in the end, one of the player would run out of money. But for Lazada, we're trying to build a more solid systems or more solid backbones of both assortment, findability, and also engagement. So I think, in my opinion, that's also one of the key strengths, and it reflects to how our like back end works. So Lazada is part of Alibaba, and we adopt a lot of their back end, which is quite solid and required a lot less manual work. So our employees, me included, could work in better efficiency. Yeah. ครับ
Thank you.
Any question? Any question? Please. Okay, if no question, okay, on behalf of the school MSME, I want to thank, okay, Kun Nop too much, okay, for your very value, okay, seminar for today. Okay, I would like everyone, okay, please say thank you and give big hand to Kun Nop ครับ
Thank you ค่ะ
thank you ครับ
ครับแล้วถ้านักศึกษาผมสนใจส
ข
มั
อบ
คร
คุณค่ะ
Lazada
thank you ค่ะ
ถ้านักศึกษาผมสนใจสมัคร Lazada นี่ต้องทำยังไงบ้างครับคุณนพครับ
จริงๆถ้าในเรื่องของตำแหน่งงานนะครับคือสามารถเข้ามาดูในเว็บไซต์ Lazada Career ได้เลยซึ่งตรงนั้นเนี่ยตำแหน่งงานค่อนข้างที่จะอัปเดตมากๆแบบเราค่อนข้างอัปเดตเว็บไซต์ตรงนั้นสม่ำเสมอนะครับแล้วเวลาส่งเข้ามาเนี่ยจริงๆ HR หรือว่าคนที่เป็น hiring manager ได้ดูแน่นอนคือเราค่อนข้าง active กับ channel ตรงนี้พอสมควรนะครับ
ครับแล้วที่ Lazada มี A-back สิทธิ์เก่า A-back อยู่เยอะไหมครับ
มีผมว่าถ้าตีคร่าวๆเป็นเปอร์เซ็นต์ผมว่าน่าจะประมาณ 15% น่าจะได้ครับ
โอ้เยอะนะครับ
ก็ไม่น้อยครับนับว่าไม่น้อยใช่ครับผม
แสดงว่าใน A-back ก็คงมีหวังนะครับ
อ๋อใช่แน่นอนครับคืออย่างที่ผมบอกแหละมันส่วนตัวเลยนะถ้าตัวผมแล้วกันผมไม่รู้ hiring manager คนอื่นเป็นไงตัวผมไม่ได้สนใจมากว่าเรียนอะไรมาจบอะไรมาตรงสายหรือเปล่าแต่ว่าด้าน passion ค่อนข้างสำคัญแล้วก็การทำการบ้านเกี่ยวกับอินดัสทรีอะครับถ้าทำการบ้านมาดีอะจริงๆโอกาสมีอยู่ไม่น้อยอยู่แล้วครับ
ครับผมยังไงขอฝากเด็ก A-back นะครับคุณนพขอบคุณครับ
ได้ครับแน่นอนครับขอบคุณมากครับอาจารย์
ครับผมสวัสดีครับ
ครับสวัสดีครับขอบคุณครับทุกคน
อาจารย์ไม่ต้องพูดแล้วเหรอ
อาจจะพูดอะไรพูด
ไม่ได้พูดต้องพูดจบอ่ะพี่เขาไปแล้วอ่ะ
โอเคครับครับสวัสดีครับ
ขอบคุณค่ะ